Back to the LOOPCast. Today, we have a very special guest. We're joined by Mary Margaret Olohan from the Daily Signal and Josh as well, but you guys know Josh. Mary Margaret, thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Isn't this like your third time on the show, right?
Yeah, she's regular status.
I know I'm quickly becoming a regular.
You get to 5 times, then you join the 5-timer club, just like SNL, and you get like a special coat.
Yeah, is there like a punch card for the LOOPCast or something? And then you get a mug after a while or something.
Do you get a prize?
You have to have a mug.
No, you should give me a mug.
I cannot believe
I need to have a LOOPCast mug.
Oh, we don't have a LOOPCast mug.
It's unbelievable.
We have a Loop mug, and it's unbelievable you don't have a Loop mug, and we're going to solve that immediately. But
excellent.
We have a lot of topics to discuss today, but I'd like to come up top. We have a famous author on the show today, and no, I'm not talking about Josh. I'm talking about Mary Margaret. You wrote a book called Detrans.
Yes.
And from what I've seen, super successful. I've seen you all over the place. Josh has a copy right there. Betrayed by Medicine, the unspoken horrors of gender transition. So if you could, just brief summary on the book, and I'd like to dig into a little bit of your experience writing it, but why'd you decide to do it?
You should virtually sign it for me.
I'll sign an actual copy for you, Josh.
Sweet.
But no, this was a book I wrote. I have been reporting on culture war issues for, I like to say a long time, but then I realized it's not that long, since 2019, basically. And they're very close to my heart. I'm very passionate about abortion, marriage, family, gender, all these topics. As a Catholic, I think those are the issues that I know are probably the most important nowadays. And they all pertain to life and the dignity of the human person, and that's why I care about them. So a couple of years ago, when I was doing a lot of reporting on gender, I started seeing all these stories popping up about people who had tried to transition and then realized that's impossible, and then tried to go back to their normal biological sex. And I was seeing these stories popping up everywhere, and at the time I didn't really know how to cover them because all these people were anonymous, and it was just very vague but horrible and sad. And I listened in on like a live Twitter Spaces event where all these people were talking about what had happened to them, and it sounded so dystopian and sci-fi and just so sad that I thought, okay, I need to tell these stories, but obviously it needs to be told in a long form way. And at the time, it never occurred to me that I would write a book. But when I got an opportunity to write a book a couple of years later, I knew, okay, that's what I'm going to write about. And so I picked 5 people to really hone in on their stories. And that's Prisha, Abel, Helena, Luca, and Chloe. And I just started at the beginning of, what was causing them to feel lonely or ostracized, and just went through each story, kind of alongside each other to show what the pitfalls were, what social media they were using, what their families were like, what their school situation was like, what their teachers were like, and then to show how they went down this slippery slope, where they got the hormones, what the doctors said, this path to transition, and then what the surgery was like, what the hormones were like, what the moment was when they realized this was wrong, that they could never actually become another gender because that's impossible. And it's really told in their own words, because my goal with this wasn't to just say transitioning is bad, because as a reporter, I know there's so many great commentators out there who will do a way better job of saying that than I will. But I knew, and I've seen the power of storytelling and how these stories can change hearts and minds just by being the truth. You put the truth out there. As a reporter, I know people read it and they come to terms with it in their own understanding and their own empathy and their own view of the world. So I knew if I put these stories out there, I think it would have a bigger impact on some people than commentary saying that trans kids is wrong would. And so my hope with this was to reach people who would never read a book by, someone as intelligent as Ryan Anderson, but they might read a book on, gender ideology in someone's own words that actually tried to transition. And I think it is having that effect. I'm getting a lot of really good feedback from people who have said that they had never heard these types of stories before. They're very moved by, how sad this attempt at transition was for some of these girls, and how, it gives them a better understanding and a better glimpse into this world, because these are really intimate, vulnerable stories. And I'm so grateful to these detransitioners for opening up to me, because it's a brave thing to do. This is a very in-depth emotional endeavor. And I'm very grateful to them for sharing their stories with me.
No doubt. And hey, don't sell yourself short on the intelligence front, first off. But another just question I'd like to ask, you were already somewhat familiar, as I think maybe most people are at this point. It's just become such a huge issue. But when you were writing the book, going into the individual stories, what surprised you the most about talking to detransitioners themselves in their journeys?
Yeah, I think I expected them to be less forthcoming with me. And what I don't know that I realized fully was that, we all know that this sounds traumatic, right? When we hear these stories, that sounds, very upsetting. But it's not just that they went through this. They didn't have anyone to look to when they were going through this that could say, yes, I tried this and it hurt me. And so they have this kind of desperate need, and I guess desperate is the wrong word, but just like a very urgent need to be that person for someone else. And it's really beautiful because they didn't have anyone to tell them, yes, I did this. I can tell you for a fact it's not going to make you happy. And they want to be that person for someone else. And so to be kind of the vehicle for them to be that person for another young person that's going through such a hard time is such a gift and a blessing for me, because I know that we're going to reach a young person or a parent who might have gone a completely different direction and pushed a kid down the road towards this. And now because they can hear these stories and have this firsthand testimony, they're not going to do that. And I don't think I realized how personally the detransitioners would hold this mission in their hearts. And, maybe that was just naive of me, but they're not just talking about what they've been through and saying, help me, I need help after this. They're trying to be that kind of light in the darkness for other kids. And it's really beautiful and really sad, but really inspiring too, because they're the only people who have that unique ability to be that light in the darkness for other kids right now. And there are so many kids out there that are struggling with who they are and why they're on this earth. And most of them don't come from faith-filled families, so they have no understanding of identity or purpose or eternal salvation. And so it's really hard for them to figure out what their place in this world is in general. And there's too many activists that are readily trying to tell them, oh, it's because you're in the wrong body, or, oh, you're, a part of this persecuted minority trans group. That's why you don't fit in. And so that, I guess, is my kind of rambling explanation for something that I kind of stumbled on throughout this process that has been really beautiful to see.
Yeah, no doubt. It reminds me a lot of 12-step programs. Like one of the final steps is to then go out and reach out and help people that were in that place that you were at. And I guess I haven't really thought about it in terms of addiction, but it does feel like there's kind of a addictive social virus quality to it. I know Elon Musk always refers to it as like the woke mind virus or something. But where there's holes, there's people actively seeking to fill those holes, and those people don't have your good in mind. And I just, incredible project. Highly recommend. Go grab the book. I'm excited to have you on the show today for a few reasons. One, you're an excellent reporter, and we have the media machine, as I'm calling it, being activated here. We're also going to talk about we're going to talk about Ballerina Farm today. Very well written, clever hit piece on a big family out there. And I know you come from a big family as well, and a reporter. So interesting from that angle as well. But if you want to, so what's up to everyone in the chat? Say hi to our new guest, Mary Margaret Olohan. If you're around, subscribe, help us out, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, like this episode, all that good stuff. But now it's time to roll into the Thunderdome. We have the media machine, the Death Star, as Josh calls it, activated. So if we want to talk about an excitement factor that was not around when Joe Biden was still on top of the ticket, we have Kamala Harris anointed at the top. Now, the latest of it being the Obamas have endorsed her. That was one of the big holdouts that we saw. In one of the cringiest videos I've seen to announce someone getting a call. It was like the fakest video call of all time. But if we run down line item here, so we have Border Czar talk. I think we did a little Border Czar talk in the last one. I think the title Czar is pretty awesome. I don't know why anyone would be shying away from that. But we have
you like Russian dictators, or what?
it's a cool word. I don't know what to say. So Josh, why do you think the media machine feels like it's been activated now? And are you nervous at all about a wave of Kamala hype?
I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, like this is the same media that last year was saying she was doing a disastrous job. I mean, there's all the headlines like, where is she? What is she doing? Why can't she get her act together? And then now, the word has gone out. Like the whole thing about the borders are thing. The reason why that matters is because yesterday they sent out this card of all these talking points, and literally everybody on MSNBC and CNN recited each of these points verbatim, unquestioned. Like this is what are the media? They're not actually keeping the people in power, like giving it to them at all, like it's a joke. They're stenographers. They're literally just they're becoming Democratic Party flacks. I mean, that's all that they are. They just repeat verbatim talking points. It's like,
right.
It drives everyone insane. And the thing that made me lose it the most was what happened. WCCO. I grew up watching these SOBs in Minneapolis. These guys are terrible. It's the CBS affiliate in Minneapolis. And Esme Murphy, I cannot believe that this woman is still on. I grew up watching her, and this woman, she's got to be 70 years old by now, it feels like. But anyway, she wrote this article on the website saying, Republicans are making this false claim that she supported this bail fund for the rioters in Minneapolis. This is my old hometown, Minneapolis. You remember what happened? They took over one of the precincts, one of the police precincts, and they burned it. And I mean, like, it was absolute mayhem. My brother still works in Minneapolis. It's crazy, and it was a harrowing time. I mean, we had protesters, blocking the freeway at sometimes. It was total chaos in Minneapolis, right? And then she supported this bail fund. And people are like, she didn't support the bail fund. The tweet that is still up on her account. I mean, like, why you? Hello. And the best part about this was Esme Murphy wrote this article 2 years ago. She actually reported on the Republican press conference that attacked her for it. So it's like, I mean, it's her. Like, you were there. Like, I think you're refuting yourself. I mean, but again, it's like, it's total 1984. It's 2 + 2 = 5. It's absolutely, it's total gaslighting. It's absolutely like, well, you're going to believe me or your lying eyes? Like, what?
This makes me more nervous because it felt like they weren't doing this to Joe Biden for a month. Like all of a sudden, all this turned off. It's as if someone hit a button and now the button's back on and they're doing all the same things they did before last month when they clearly wanted to get Joe Biden off the ticket.
Right. Well, there was like this very concentrated effort after the debate where the media very much all realized at the same time that they were exposed for covering up the fact that they knew Biden was unfit to be in office, that they knew that he was just not mentally able to handle that. And then I thought it was really funny because, I see all these reporters in DC. I'm aware of all these White House press reporters. They all knew what was going on with Biden, but they were pretending that they didn't because it was not socially acceptable in their circles to acknowledge it. And so once the debate happened and everybody became aware of what was going on with Biden, they all completely reversed course and started being like mean little high school girls and aggressively talking about how mentally unfit Biden was. It was so embarrassing to see. And like some of these reporters, it was just so clear that the talking points had gone out that it was like, now you can acknowledge that he is unfit for office. And so then all of them start doing that until, of course, he resigns, or well, not resigns, but he says he's not going to run again in 2024 or in the election. And now that Kamala is the preferred nominee, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's a whole TikTok trend right now of these like supposedly relatable videos of Kamala showing that they're so wild. It's supposed to be like funny, relatable Kamala girl boss videos, and it's just her being a weirdo. Yeah, and they're so strange, but it'll be her saying something completely benign. And then everyone's like, yes, queen, like high-fiving.
Oh my gosh, yes, queen, yes. You see this, Mary? Last night they had this Zoom call for all the white women in the country who have guilt, like 140,000 white women with guilt power, all on a Zoom together. And you got Pink on there and other entertainers, and they're saying, you got to donate to Kamala. We're totally embarrassed for what we've done. and it's just, and they raised a gazillion bucks or whatever. It's
It
just
reminds me. It reminds me of that video that Rachel Platten made for Hillary Clinton. Have you guys seen this? It was like a
that is
GNC
the
video. It was so
our
funny.
fight
One
song.
of my friends,
Are you ready for our fight
Yes.
song? Let's go.
that is the
I
best
love
video.
watching it. It's honestly, I dare I say, it's a little bit inspiring. I kind of love that video.
Are you a girl,
But
hashtag
it's
girl
like-
boss?
No. But the celebrities, they always do this. And then the media has very much decided that, like, yes, it's good to promote Kamala. It's good to push her. It's good to glorify her. There was an article I saw yesterday, or a reporter tweeting about what she wore and what she ate and where she was when she found out that she was going to be the nominee. Or she was like taking calls or something. And they were
And she
talking
was in
about
her
how
sweatpants, and
she was
I
in
remember that.
sweatpants. The
Politico.
cheerleading is off the charts. Yeah, I think it was Politico. So I think we're in for, until November, we're in for a lot of that.
Yeah, and it seems like it's turned back on now that Biden's out. But if you flip it, you look at the Trump side, it feels like the person who's getting all the heat is JD Vance. And
Yes.
to flip on criticism for legitimate things and then criticism on ridiculous things, I mean, first off, we get criticism for JD Vance saying that we're run by childless cat ladies is the specific quote. And of course, that's a cut up from a longer speech where he said, there's plenty of reasons why people can't have children, and I sympathize with all of them. Like my heart breaks for people that aren't able to have kids, but he makes an obvious point that our government currently, and Kamala Harris being kind of the queen of this, are run by people that have not the same interest in the future that someone with kids would have. Just an obvious observation here.
Right. Well, and I think Tucker has made a similar point, Tucker Carlson, in that, saying, like, the left right now is very focused on sterilizing kids. They have a very strong focus on making it so that we can't have children, on aborting babies, on making it so that girls can't have kids anymore by trying to turn them into transgender boys. So there is like this very powerful machine on the left that is focused on infertility, which I think is part of the point that Vance was tapping into there.
Yeah, no doubt. And then the other thing he's being hit on is he's an old quote of him talking about there being potentially a federal response to people traveling for abortions, which people are saying, oh my gosh, can't believe that, dystopian. And then someone spread a rumor about him and a couch, which I don't even know if I want to give that the dignity of saying. Yeah. But the point being, that ended up on AP. Like, AP put out an article, no, JD Vance did not have sex with a couch. Now, talk about two different treatments here. We got Kamala Harris. Right? All her most ridiculous things are being like glorified champagne glow around her weird cackles and word salads. And we get rumors spread about JD Vance on AP about him having sex with a couch. That was first off a joke that got taken into something crazy that he never even said. It was just a random person. So the machine's on.
But on the cat lady stuff, like, I think this is an opportunity where, so then that they put that out, and then a day or two later, they're like, oh, now Trump is second guessing whether or not he should have picked JD Vance. And the rumor in DC was that he was going to replace her with Nikki Haley. Hello, not happening there.
Praise God.
But
imagine
Trump and Vance need to go on offense on this stuff, and they needed to say, we need a tax code, that is even more pro-family than we got, and the tax cuts that was put in by Trump in 2017 are going to expire. And Kamala has said she wants them to expire. And so she wants to raise taxes on families at a point where they've been suffering for years of inflation. So we need to go on offense. There's an interesting tweet thread by Inez Felcher. I can never say her name right, but stop worrying about the cat lady, she says, and look at what actually matters in terms of the vote gains. If you look at it, married men vote for Republicans 60-40. Married women, it's 56-42. Unmarried men, still an advantage, 52-45. Unmarried women, yeah, Republicans are losing them by 68% to 31. Not a shock. But the thing is, rather than freak out about this controversy here, which is, again, at least 80% manufactured, go on offense and make sure people understand the Republican Party is the party for married families and helping out kids. Right. And JD Vance already talked about, previewed that he wants to make the childbirth free. So start talking about some of this stuff. Help out, come out with new policies and to make it more affordable for families. Talk about school choice. Talk about all these things.
Yeah.
Go on offense. Don't sputter. Don't do the Mitt Romney playbook of every time the media attacks you, they go, blah, 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 blah. Oh no, gosh, what do I do now?
Yeah. I actually thought my friend Phil Wegman, who's a White House correspondent at Real Clear Politics, he had a really good tweet on this. He said, the couch attack on JD Vance reminds me of the pudding fingers attack on DeSantis. Both are stupid and made up, but like this reporter wrote with Ron DeSantis, quote, the point is not to disagree, but to humiliate. And I think that's, really the overarching thing here is not that even just that people are going to believe this, but the point is to humiliate the candidate enough that the public sentiment is just like, oh, ew. And, within the party too, we saw how much that pudding fingers story affected DeSantis on the Republican side, and how much Trump was able to, talk about that. And so I think in general, it just creates such turmoil and humiliation that's the whole point of it, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of the hey, have you stopped beating your wife? And then the person has to respond like, oh, no, I never did beat my wife. And now that's on everyone's mind kind of thing. It's like if you spread something far enough and wide enough, people will believe it, even if it's not the truth. Perception is reality.
Right. Even denying it makes you feel like you're guilty.
Right. It's
I don't think
strategy.
He should deny it. I feel like he, if he was going to handle this, if I was his comms person, I would tell him not to address this horrible couch slander and to just say, look at the media attacking me. Obviously, I'm doing a good job, which probably is what he will say.
Okay, so question for you, though. I mean, I think the couch thing's kind of probably blow over a little bit. AP did pull the story. I think the childless cat thing is going to stick around. And I do think, the campaign doesn't need to go defensive. They should go on offense, but you can't be caught flat-footed. He needs to get out there more.
Well, he is, right? He is. He just was announced last week. I was at the RNC where he was announced the vice presidential candidate. And I have to say the energy there was so fun. Everyone was so excited. He was Don Jr.'s preferred candidate. So Don Jr. was fully behind him. The energy at the RNC, everyone was just so excited about the Trump-Vance team. So they're coming off of that. And within the Republican Party, there's just nothing but support. I saw some people tweeting that the Trump campaign regretted picking him because of this couch stuff or the childless cat lady stuff. I'm not actually hearing that anywhere except for left-wing tweets.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's accurately reflecting the sentiment in the Republican Party.
No, and I wouldn't take the bait on it. I think people are taking the bait as though this is negative energy. It's like, this is what your enemies want you to think. Like,
right.
He could have put up a doorknob and people would have been coming up with weird stuff, rumors from his past. It's like, this is just how the media machine works. It's obviously slanted in one way. Like, people are going to make stuff up about whoever you put up.
Well, and so, Tom, one of the things you talked about at the top was, how do I think this is all going to affect things? Okay, so all of it, right? I mean, you had the attempted assassination, then you had,
Biden stepping out. Before he stepped out,
as Mary said, they had this great GOP convention in Milwaukee, and they even had they stepped up the rumors of him stepping down on the day of his speech. So they kind of tried to step on that. Speech went well. So Republicans were riding high. Then they kind of pushed Biden out because the polls were coming out over that Sunday morning that Trump is opening up an 8-9 point lead in some of these swing states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, or whatever. And that's when the final panic button was pushed. And they're like, not only are you not going to win, Biden, you're going to take some of our guys out. We're going to lose Senate seats that we should win if you're Democrats in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, maybe even Wisconsin. Republicans will go not only winning back the Senate, they could get up to 55 seats, which makes it easier to replace Alito or Thomas, if they want to step down and replace it with another younger conservative or whatever. So they were looking at a down ballot disaster. I think that's ultimately what happens. And it's worth remembering, in the Democratic Party, the leader of the Democratic Party is not, in fact, the president of the United States. It's the former president of the United States, Barack Obama. He remains the person in charge of the party.
No doubt.
When it all started, the first shot across the bow was when George Clooney wrote that op-ed, which is ironic because there's no way that happens unless Barack Obama gave approval for it. And then, in fact, that was confirmed. He's like, "Yep, go ahead. If you want to do that, that's fine." All orchestrated from Obama. It's amazing. And Obama, again, like, what if he would have just not picked Joe Biden? I mean, how much of history would have been changed? Like, in fact, I know this is a family program, but what did Barack Obama say behind closed doors? Never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to F things up, but he didn't say the F. He actually said the word, obviously. So, I mean, this is his own
Thanks for
assessment.
the context there.
This is his own assessment. But now you look at the rash of polls now, and the media glow from that Kamala has right now, and the polls are basically now Trump is up about 1 or 2 or 3 points, depending what poll you look at, right?
Yeah, New York Times, Siena, 48% Trump, 47% Harris.
Right. And if you remember, Trump was never closer than 8 points. He was always at least 8 points down in the New York Times poll 4 years ago against Biden. And so the average of polls, Trump has been leading consistently since September of last year. So basically what this did by swapping up Biden, putting Kamala in, you reset the race back to where it was in early June before the disastrous debate. So it's basically, like I say, each individual poll, maybe she's down by 1, down by 2, but down by 3. But the average is about 2.5 points. And by the way, she has to lead in the polls by about 4 points nationwide to win the election. That's because Democrats are bunched together in states like California and New York. And so if they're tied in the polls, Trump wins. If she's leading by about 2 points, Trump wins. She has to be leading by 4 points nationally to win the race. So that's why people are saying it's still looking, nothing's guaranteed.
Very
but
interesting.
like I said last time, it still feels like 2012 in reverse, where the Republican candidate now, the Democrat might get closer, but it's still the fundamentals look strong, and he's at 49 in a lot of these polls. That usually the last few cycles, the last 2 times he ran, he's at about 48, 47, 46, 45. He's at 48, 49.
So
he's in a better spot.
Are we ready to get into Ballerina Farm?
Yes.
Well, before we do that, we also have to plug our own book, obviously, for
very
Country
true.
Insanity,
Yes.
which features
Mary Margaret
Margaret
Olohan.
Olohan talking about the media. So go to Catholic Vote and get the book, people. Come on.
Man,
It's
prolific.
so great.
Prolific author
went
here
home
on the program.
I know. She's great.
I went to my parents' house and there were like 4 of them on the kitchen table. And my mom was so excited. It was really cute.
That's awesome. Yeah. I understand my mom, she might be live here in the chat. She listens to almost every episode too. So nothing like a mother support. Okay. So Ballerina Farm.
I think it'd be a disaster for my mom was in the chat.
Not everyone. Not everyone. So Josh, I know you're a big Ballerina Farm guy, but this is
Never heard of this.
The origin of this story was I get home and my wife is steaming about something. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, did you see the Ballerina Farm article? Like, no, I did not. Just Tom, you have to get into this on the podcast. I'm like,
Tell me, what is the Ballerina Farm? I don't even know this. Seriously. What is this?
Quick background on Ballerina Farm. It's run by this lady, Hannah Nealman. She was previously a ballerina. That's how she kind of got the name. She is married to Daniel Nealman, who actually is the son of, I believe it's JetBlue Airlines founder. Basically, they have a large family. They have a large social media following, and they live on a farm. They run a farm. They sell meat. They have a really successful brand. Super popular with probably ladies in the MMO demographic. Very popular with my wife. They actually got my wife on sourdough. So they sold Willow, sourdough starter, and now we have sourdough all the time, partially because of these
improving
guys.
Tom's life dramatically.
Dramatically. It's honestly, it's been night and day. Now we're having fresh sourdough. We're very crunchy in our home. Shout out to my wife. She's wonderful. But so this Sunday Times reporter got invited out to the farm, flew out there, and here is the headline. Meet the queen of the trad wives and her 8 children, in parentheses. Hannah Nealman, known to her 9 million followers as Ballerina Farm, milks cows, gives birth without pain relief, and breastfeeds at beauty pageants. Is this empowering? Is this an empowering new model of womanhood or a hammer blow for feminism?
Oh, I wonder what she thinks it is. I can't tell.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. So basically, the implication of the article is that she implicitly and explicitly says that Hannah was manipulated into a miserable life as a mother or a trad wife, bearing children and being controlled by her husband. She gave up her dreams as a ballerina to get married young and have kids. Now, the writer's very talented. I want to give her credit. She did it in a very clever, well done way. But if you really just needed to get a paragraph of what it was, she had an axe to grind with this family. So Mary Margaret, I know you said you had some thoughts on this as well. What was going through your mind as you read this article?
Okay, well, first of all, my sister and I were talking about how it was a very well-written article, and the photographs were beautiful. If the writer had gone into it from an unbiased perspective without an agenda, it could have come out really well. Because this is a really cool story. This woman is not only beautiful, but she's living this very beautiful and fulfilling life. Her kids are adorable. They're very industrious. They're all like working together, and they have this beautiful, happy life. But the writer went into it prepared to tell us that this woman was, persecuted and humbled by her dictatorial husband. And the writer clearly wanted us to come away from this thinking, okay, this woman looks really cool on Instagram, but secretly her husband is controlling her. And I think you can tell that based on different paragraphs and descriptors in the story, such as when the Times reporter or the Sunday Times reporter, she said that she wanted to ask Hannah about birth control, but she didn't want to ask it in front of the kids, which shout out to the reporter. That was nice of her to not ask the mother about birth control in front of her children.
Yeah.
But she tried to ask it in a different way and basically said, do you guys want to have more kids? I think she said, what did she say? Do you plan pregnancies? And the husband said no. And the way that the reporter framed this whole little conversation is she's describing the husband's responses without any emotion whatsoever. So she says, did you plan pregnancies? And the husband says no. And the wife says, when he says no, it's very much a matter of prayer for me. I'm like, God, is it time to bring another one to earth? And I've never been told no. And the husband responded, but for whatever reason, it's exactly 9 months after a baby that she's ready for the next one. And now, as someone from these circles, and I'm sure you two feel the same, we all know that he said that jokingly. Like he was saying,
right.
But for whatever reason, we all know
Right.
that's how it was said. But the way she wants you to read it is him kind of scarily saying, well, like after 9 months, that's what happens. Like, she's implying that this man is kind of controlling and forcing his wife to have children, which is scary and awful and rude because we know that's not what's happening here. And the whole way she explains this dialogue is along the same lines. The wife says,
I'd like to note as well, too, she spends the entire article using emotional language and putting in details, yet suspiciously dropped it for that entire paragraph. So like right before that, she said, do you, and then she put a line, I pause and look at her fixedly, plan pregnancies. She does stuff like that throughout the whole article very effectively to make you feel a certain emotion, and yet drops it at very strategic times. In this case, when he was making an obvious joke, I'm sure, right?
Right.
She
doesn't use it for the husband.
No.
So the husband's not allowed to have emotions. He's the scary robot guy that's forcing his wife to have all these kids. And meanwhile, like the wife's responses are really beautiful too. She's saying, no, we pray about it. We are open to life. So, I found that really frustrating. I thought that was rude of the writer. And also, this family welcomed her into their home and they trusted her, which personally I think was kind of stupid. I would never allow a New York Times reporter into my home to have an unfiltered access to the family. They're lucky that she didn't, see some kid running around without shoes on and report them to child services or something. Like that's the kind of thing I would expect a Times reporter to do in that situation.
I know you're joking about that, but I need to press you because you're an actual reporter. I've heard that sentiment said a few times. Never let a New York Times reporter in your home or a reporter like this.
No.
Why would you as a reporter say that? Why should someone think that way?
She's looking for reasons to vilify you. And this article shows that she's doing her best to vilify the husband with what she has. She doesn't have very much to work with there. But the way she did this was by portraying him as non-emotional and controlling. She didn't really have anything else to use in that way. So thank goodness, because it seems like he's a good guy and he's a good father and husband. But, this woman had the ability to look at this family's life and twist it. And she did, like we're saying, but, let's just say one of the kids was crying or being bad and the mom gave him a slap on the wrist and the Times reporter saw that, like that could be misconstrued really easily. There's so many different ways this could have gone wrong. She even tried to imply that there was something wrong with the fact that the mom held the baby the entire time they were there. She said something like the mom took the baby from the dad and held the baby for the next 4 hours or something like that. Like, God forbid the mother holds her child. So she was looking for reasons to, I would argue, hurt the family. And that's why you wouldn't allow someone that hates everything that you stand for into your home with the ability to write about you.
Yeah, the one money quote that she didn't say until the very end, but it says, "I can't, it seems, get an answer out of Nealman without her being corrected, interrupted, or answered for by either her husband or a child. Usually I am doing battle with steely Hollywood publicists. Today I am up against an army of toddlers who all want their mom and a husband who thinks he knows better."
Okay, I'd love to say something on this because there is the Ballerina Farm. She's got like a website and a big social media following. Is this right?
Yeah.
Okay, so her tendency would want to be to share and to get more publicity, right? That's her natural inclination to try to further what they're doing. And the kids and the husband, especially the husband, I would think, are actually wanting to make sure that they're protecting her.
No doubt.
From a reporter that's trying to spin or cast it in a certain light. So in fact, far from being a dominating, controlling husband, he's like, dude, watch out. Like, don't trust federales. Don't trust reporters. Like, this is, I mean, that it's not out of control. It's actually truly out of love. Like, you don't want your wife to walk into a trap. Hey, whoa, honey, whoa. And if she's smart, she'd be like, ding, 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 ding. Maybe he's not trying to control me. Maybe he's trying to save me.
Yeah, and I think I would actually push back on that a little bit because they made it clear that they were both, the reporter even tried to ask them who is in charge. And they've said, we are co-parents, like we're co-equal in this
co-CEOs,
family,
I think was
marriage.
The exact term.
Co-CEOs, yeah. And I thought that was interesting because I kind of expected them to take a more traditional approach to that answer. And, you know, but that was their response. And I think that the reporter probably didn't like it because she wanted it to be something else. And so my guess is that they agreed to that interview together and the whole family was putting their best foot forward to show this reporter, this is our real life. You know, we are the same as she portrays us online. And like the kids chiming in, I would argue if I were doing that story, I would have described that probably as charming. You know, the kids chiming in, the husband chiming in. Yes. But, you know, this childless cat lady has a different response. And I did look her up.
Shots fired.
I did look her up. She is single, but so am I. So, you know, who am I to judge?
Do you have a cat, Mary?
No.
But you do have 7 siblings, right?
I have 10.
10, yeah. So you came from a big family. Sorry, my wife comes from a family of 8. So I think she also kind of came at this from like a place of a little bit being offended. And I often say in this program, when news gets a hold of Catholic things that we all understand, it's almost like the Petri dish treatment, like we're some strange strain of disease that needs to be studied and understood, the things that we all take for granted. And I told her, I was like, this is Petri dish treatment of big families. Like the first thing she noted when she walked in the door
a virus
was that there was 28 shoes at the door and that her kids were hanging on her braids and that she couldn't get a word in. I'm like, have you ever been to a house with toddlers? Like it's impossible for me to talk to my wife sometimes because our toddler's talking, like crazy.
And it's wholesome, like 28 pairs of shoes at the door. Like, like that's just wholesome. Hanging on their mom's braids, that's adorable. Also, I'm impressed that her braids are long enough for them to hold on to. Like all of this is like really nice color. My guess is that she was kind of torn because it's a great story. There's so much fodder for her to write about. And as a reporter and a journalist, she probably was just like drowning in details. And she wanted to include a lot of them because she knows it's good color, but she also doesn't like what she's telling. So she was kind of torn between two things here, whether to tell the story as she saw it and how to work in her own personal animus.
I mean, this reminds me
Jessica, let's go through some of the pictures here. Every
time I take my kid to the dentist, though, she's like, "You have 6 kids. How does that work? I'm so confused." Like, what? It was normal 40 years ago, okay? Why are you acting like I'm an attraction at the zoo? Like, it's so weird.
I know. I think people don't realize in big families that once the kids get old enough, they do a lot of the work. You know, like they clean the kitchen. They help drive people to soccer practice. They like fold laundry and stuff. It's not like you're doing all of it all the time.
Is that what
And in
happens
this
to your
case,
family? I gotta have those kids come over to my house. I got six
oh
lazy
yeah,
ones. Let me tell you.
definitely. Well, is your oldest kid a girl or a boy?
She's a girl. Yeah, she's actually not too bad, but some of the rest of them,
She can get him, keep him in line.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about the pictures too, and they were very striking pictures. So one thing that Hannah
yeah, they're
does is that
beautiful.
she competes in these beauty pageants, and she actually was previously in the news for saying that she feels the most beautiful after she has a child, feels the most empowered after having a child. And I mean, you look at the pictures, like she of course is just this gorgeous blonde-haired Mormon woman in Utah.
Yeah.
And I can't get over too, like with all the kind of lip service that is paid to feminism, like you would go to this wonderful, beautiful woman's house, keep scrolling down too, and you see the pictures of her happy family. Look, I mean, look at this picture. Like all the kids around, this
It's
is just
so
adorable.
charming.
And you go there to basically set her up as somehow the results of being in a committed marriage and building something with a husband, and how she's somehow miserable and she got tricked into this. The implications were that her husband forced her into it to give up her ballerina dreams and all these things too. Maybe it's the Petri dish treatment as well. These are real parts of getting married and having children that maybe if we give her the benefit of the doubt, which I'm almost not willing to do, but to give some of the benefit of the doubt, if you're single, it's hard to understand the type of sacrifices that you make when you do get married. And there's a mention in this article too about, the first years of marriage were hard. We were having kids, like we were just getting started. Yeah, like they are hard. And you do have to give up some things to sacrifice for something beautiful. And you look at these kids and the relationships that they have, like this is, from a Catholic understanding, sanctifying, right? You're
Yes.
building your
Yes.
family, leading them towards heaven. You're growing in virtue. You're becoming holy. All of these things make you holy. But if you were looking at it from a feminism lens where your only goal is to be as empowered as possible, to be on the same plane as men, and to be a hashtag girl boss, this would look like torture or captivity. Like I was blown away when I was going on Twitter by some of the things people were saying of like, I feel so bad for this poor woman, have her blink, get her out of there, have her leave, as if somehow she wasn't on board with this, which the whole time she's like, people are trying to put labels on me. This is how we live. This was our dream. This is what we're doing.
She should charge everyone like $100 a day just to come by and see what it's like.
Seriously. No, I think people do.
I also just like don't believe those people on social that are saying this poor woman, get her out of there. I just don't believe them. Like, I'm sorry, I don't. I think that most people
I don't know. Look at the numbers. There's a lot of people that are like wanting to live, not get married. I mean, look at the numbers.
Curious
I
your
just
thoughts
don't
on
believe them. I think that a lot of the people that are saying this are just saying it because they don't have it. And they're afraid and they're sad and they're lonely. And so it's easier for them to say, oh, this looks terrible. Like she looks like her life sucks. But in reality, they're thinking, I would love that. I just can't attain that and I can't have it. And so I'm going to pretend like I don't like it. I think you would be hard pressed to find a woman if you actually sat down with her. Let's just pick a random woman on the internet that's criticizing Ballerina Farm. And you said to her, do you want a husband that's obsessed with you and a beautiful farm and 7 kids that all love you and run around after you all day? Do you want that? She would probably cry and say, yes, I would love that. But she would never say that publicly because it's not socially acceptable. And, it's much easier to say, I prefer to have my, very expensive apartment in New York and work my soulless crushing
Sounds
job
like we
all
got the
day.
makings of a good reality TV show.
Yeah, actually, we got a concept here.
Yeah. And, like, especially when you add in the fact that Hannah is just like beautiful and stunning and clearly takes care of her body and like eats really well and lives like a very organic, natural lifestyle. All of these things are what women want. I don't know if your average woman would articulate wanting a big family nowadays, but if she could see the love and support that comes with it, I highly doubt that she would just, no, I don't want that. So I think a lot of this is coming from a place of sadness and fear. And, I'm kind of happy this reporter did this piece because even though it's kind of, angry and got some venom in it, it's still showcasing these people's lives. And I think one point we haven't talked about that I would be remiss to not bring up is they are very wealthy. So
no doubt, yeah.
They have a lot of money and that's not normal. And when you have a big family, I think typically a lot of these big families starting off, don't have a lot of money. Like, I know my parents, when they were first having kids, my dad was in law school, so like we ate spaghetti all the time. Like, and that is just like a fact of life for a lot of big families. But it's still beautiful, you know. There's sacrifice, there's love. I didn't think anything was wrong with eating spaghetti as a kid a lot, and I love my family, and I was so grateful to have all these babies around. So you know, I think that's a good conversation to have in general too, is that having a lot of siblings can mean sacrifice, and, you know, not going on vacation every year and things like that. But certain things, you know, balances out. And so there are people who are very angry at the promotion of this big family ideal because they say it wouldn't be possible without all of this money. I would disagree with that, but I think that, you know, this glamorized version of it, I think her stove costs something crazy, like someone said, like $30,000 or something like that. So maybe this Instagram version of it is not attainable, but it's pretty. And, you know, if it's motivating people to move towards a lifestyle that's more self-sacrificial and love-centered, then great.
There's something I noticed about all of the critics too. They all have something in common. They're all feminists, and they're all women.
Yes.
Isn't the whole point to be women supporting? You know what I mean? Like, you get invited to this woman's house who, like, you're both doing pretty well. If she's a reporter for the Times, you go there to grind an axe against her lifestyle decisions, clearly of something beautiful she's built. It always blows my mind that the meanest and most vindictive people all are online saying how much they believe women, support women, bring each other up, and they're the meanest and most vindictive behind closed doors.
Well, because they never believed that, actually. They never actually were about supporting women. They were about supporting a very specific agenda, a very specific narrative. So when it becomes something they don't agree with, why would they support the woman that's saying that?
Yeah. Like, or even the fact that I see Elizabeth in the chat, they're blaming it on men. Like, even the way that she framed this was that he was kind of the controlling and vindictive one. It probably didn't even cross her mind that Hannah could have wanted this, wanted a husband that worked for her, wanted a husband that built this for her, wanted a husband that supported her. Like, even that, as a good thing, properly understood, is seen as controlling, or like you're not thinking straight. You don't understand. Like, you shouldn't want this.
Well, right. And people like this writer don't view a husband in this situation in a favorable way because they don't have any comprehension of why a man would want to sacrifice and devote all of his time to all these kids and his wife and his farm, when in their mind, men are very just like focused on sexual gratification and using you. That's like the feminist view of man, of using you and taking your career opportunities. So I think it would be hard for her to understand and put herself in the shoes of a man that genuinely wants to love and serve his family.
Yeah. I mean, it's long been my thought that when men emulate St. Joseph, you know, women respond positively to that. And the idea here is that, again, we need to get back to this, like, chauvinism is not what Christianity is about. Christ called on men to serve. Like, that's the model. It's like to die to yourself. And it's like, and I get it. Like, I look at it like, how much of my paycheck goes for taxes, tuition, and teeth? All of it.
The 3 T's.
That's okay. I mean, that's why we do what we do.
Gotta eat some spaghetti.
There you go.
So onto the Twilight Zone now. We have Josh up first. MMOs is going to be a good tryout for you. I don't think we've had an external Twilight Zone, or maybe we have at this point. But I believe in you. I think you're gonna kill it. So we're gonna go Josh first. We'll let you round out the end. Josh.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, you know, Greg Price brought this to the attention, but it's like you walk into the Capitol on January 6th and you get hunted down by the FBI and thrown into pretrial detention for a year. But if you assault police officers, deface statues, burn the American flag, which is not your own, they actually stole the flag. So some people are like, it's not a crime. It was a crime because it was federal property. It was not their flag that they burned. And what happens? The DC law enforcement dropped all charges against the 4 people that were involved in assaulting police officers. Again, it's like, I hate talking about double standards. Like, it's like we don't have a justice system. This is 2-tier justice. It's like we decide whether or not, if you're on the right side of things, if we're going to prosecute you, and it's absolute garbage.
Right. It wasn't even just that. They were my colleague Tim Kennedy got a video of a protester dragging a cop across the ground They lowered the American flags. They raised the Palestinian flags. They burned the American flags. They wrote Hamas is coming on this like big monument, a historic monument outside of Union Station, where like everybody I know comes in and out of for work every day, and in like a very well traversed part of DC, and nothing happens.
Nothing. And it took
It's just
Kamala Harris a good 24 hours before she denounced them. She had to go like this to figure out which way the wind was blowing.
Yeah, totally. That definitely crossed my mind. Also, there was someone when they were burning the American flag that ran in and grabbed a piece of it and ran. And apparently
attacking him, yeah.
And they literally like, get him. And they were probably going to beat him up at the very least. And so he runs away with the flag. He escapes. And you find out it's just like a local lawyer that worked there. And I was just laughing, thinking about that in my head. Like, okay, year of our Lord 2024, saving an American flag in the capital of the country will basically get you killed. Like this guy almost could have been killed
in danger
for the flag of our own country.
My old colleague Richie McGinnis was getting that footage, and he had to like sprint to even get behind him because they were chasing this man so aggressively.
That was the video. It was from Richie. Shout out to Richie. It was such a cool video. He did a good job documenting all of this. But
and these same commies, these same pro Gaza commies, what did they do for Benjamin Netanyahu? Because he gave this all because Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, gave a speech to the joint session of Congress, right? And so he's staying at the hotel. They released maggots into the hotel where he was staying at, and they pulled a fire alarm several times during the night. Like,
who was supposed to be in charge of that? So I was reaching out to the Watergate hotel, where the famous Watergate scandal happened. That's where they were staying, and I reached out to the hotel and asked them, is this true? Like, were there maggots on the table? And they told me that the Secret Service was supposed to be in charge of handling security. Are we shocked? And so it wasn't just maggots, it was maggots, mealworms, and then they released crickets in the halls. They set off the fire alarms. And they said, they have the very typical, like, disrespectful language towards Netanyahu. So I'm sure Netanyahu, who arrived here, Biden couldn't even be bothered to meet him because Biden was missing.
We don't. Yeah.
Who knows? The Democratic Party, people.
What is going on? What is wrong with the United States right now?
Yeah. If you have legitimate concerns with United States involvement in Israel, like, I understand that. But this type of thing just wins no one, right? That's why I'm like, at this point, I'm like, are these paid agitators? I know John Kirby said that Iran supposedly is funding some of these protests. It's like they're protesting in the least sympathetic ways possible. Like, I'm on whoever's not burning the American flag. It's just an obvious to me. Like, no one should do that, regardless of what country you're from, or even if you're an American. I know there's like precedent for this. I actually think it should be illegal. Oh, there goes my camera. It should be illegal to burn an American flag. I think it should be too. 100%
I think it should be too. And it's not. I don't consider it to be free speech. It's an action. Setting something on fire is an action. It's different than a speech. Again, and even John Paul Stevens, a wicked leftist that used to be on the Supreme Court, he was also, even though he's a lefty, he was a veteran. He served the country, and he was against burning the flag. So I just want to give him mild props on that, getting that one right. It's just like pornography. I don't consider it speech. It's different. There are different categories of political speech.
It is definitely different, yeah.
Do we have Tom yet? Is he back yet?
All right, we'll see how long that lasts.
Tom's camera.
I've been having camera issues lately.
We need to get the little tip jar people put in to fix Tom's camera.
Yeah, seriously. All right, hopefully I slide mine in before it shuts off again. But mine, synod talk. So, I cannot get over this. This is a whole situation is like perfect for Twilight Zone. So the synod.va on Twitter put out a poll because synodality is all about reaching out to the margins and finding out about people's lived experience. And so the question was, do you believe that synodality as a path of conversion and reform can enhance the mission and participation of all the baptized? Ask that in a very synod way.
Wah, wah.
So we get 88% no and 12% yes until the post was deleted.
Also, I'm sorry, I really understand that question. Like, why would you phrase that?
Which very on par for the synod in general, because I don't think many people understand it, but nothing. And I even saw like the origin for the poll was the Vatican. It literally got tweeted out of the Vatican, but it's like, so we want to hear about your experience. We want to know your thoughts until it's not what we want it to be. And then we're done. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, this is just the most obvious Twilight Zone. I was like, this just popped on my feed. I participated in the poll and didn't really care about my lived experience, unfortunately. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Quick and easy. All right, Mary Margaret, Twilight Zone, what you got?
I mean, okay, I did a ton of reporting outside the homes of the justices during Roe v. Wade because all these protesters were going there to try and intimidate the justices into voting a certain way. And so this week, we've seen a renewed focus on,
All good. Too excited about the justices.
He looks like allergic to
take
this,
it from here,
this
Tom.
absurdity.
Tom, maybe I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, all good. So yeah, Mary Margaret Olohan was reporting. I feel like I'm doing this almost in third person, but she was there during the protests for the Supreme Court justice. So Brett Kavanaugh, many of you may have seen the headlines. There was someone that went to D.C. with the intent of killing him, and he was stopped previous to doing that. But there's laws. Now, I want to confirm for a fact, Josh, there are laws against protesting outside of justices' homes.
Absolutely.
That have just been completely flaunted if you think the wrong way on abortion.
That's right.
The summary.
That's it. That's exactly it.
All right. Basically, it's against the law to do this, and nobody was enforcing the law. So now, after this Biden assassination attempt, or this Trump assassination attempt, the lawmakers are saying, shouldn't we be worried about the Supreme Court justices? And they're right. There's been, I want to say, 3 different assassination attempts three different threats to justices and a legitimate assassination attempt. So this is something I cover all the time. And I'm like, thank you that we're caring about it now and paying attention. And so the lawmakers are calling on Garland this week to hone in on the security for the justices. So we'll see if they actually do anything about it. But given this attack on Trump, I think we're going to see more of these, which is really scary. And hopefully they beef up security, not just for these political candidates, but also the justices.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's perfectly, whether it's good or not, it's perfectly fine to protest outside the home of lawmakers. I've seen it happen a lot. That's considered free speech, but it's against the law with regards to judges on the federal bench, precisely because the thought is it's used to intimidate on a ruling, and it's trying to interfere with the due process. And that's why it's against the law, and the left just totally flaunts it, totally ignores it. And why is it that this is permitted? Like we need police officers, Capitol Police, whoever, pull these guys in and arrest them. This is garbage.
Yeah. And actually, while we have you, Mary Margaret, we have a couple of people first time on the chat. Shout out to T Knight. He had a question for you. He's curious if you have experienced any attacks for writing your book, or just in general.
Well, Tom and I were just talking about this before the show. No, not really. People have been really nice about the book. I think it's because I approached it in the way that I did. I'm telling their stories. I'm not telling you that things are wrong. I'm just saying, here's the stories of these detransitioners. You take and do with them what you want. I'm pretty clear that I think that it's not good to trans children, but the book itself is really just telling their stories. So I've gotten a lot of really good feedback, people being really nice. Maybe down the line, we'll see some other, responses to it. But for now, it's been really positive. And I guess I'll say, like, the only really negative feedback that I've gotten in general in my work is when I go to the Women's March or something and I try and ask people some spicy questions. They get very upset there. But
wait, women mad about women asking questions? Again,
shocking, right?
This is a terrible trend I'm noticing with the seriously, my all-time clip of you, my favorite clip of all time is you at the Women's March. And did you get spit on? Was that it? It was like that.
I think we literally talked about this on the show.
You
Yeah.
handled that as good as you could possibly handle getting spit on by someone. But yeah, I need to go
gross.
back. I've watched it
It's
so
gross.
many times. Like, this is just not getting spit on, of course. It was just how crazy the woman was. You're just like asking a
They're
question.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, they ran us out of the women's march. Actually, we had to, like, we left. We went behind the cops because we were like, we're causing problems. We don't actually want to like make the cops have to intervene. So I'd
Right.
rather leave.
And I hate when people aren't inclusive. It's my least favorite thing, probably.
You know.
Well,
we don't mean diversity that way.
yeah, wait, not that much. So I guess we end here. I, of course, want to give you the opportunity. Where can people find your book? Where can they support your work?
You can find the book on Amazon, Target, Walmart, anywhere you get books, and you can find my work at dailysignal.com or follow me on X/Twitter at Mary Margaret Olohan.
There it is. Thank you so much for joining the show. A few asks at the end. If you guys enjoyed this, join us live. It's the most fun way to do this. Subscribe on YouTube. Like the episode. You can leave us reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can find them there as well. If you want to email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. And if you want to support us in the best way, become a champion. Catholic Vote champions are what allows us to do this show. Our monthly supporters are literally the lifeblood of our work. So thank you so much to everyone who is a champion right now. And we do this all for you guys. So, but fellow Catholic, you got a nice Irish Catholic name here as well. We end the show. St. Thomas
wearing
More.
green for, you know.
So pray for us. St. Patrick, pray for us, but also St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe, St. Fidelis, pray for us. And we will see you guys on Monday. Thank you for joining the show. Have a great weekend. Peace.
Bye.
All right.